All right, what's going on, everybody? JV Wins is here. Dogon SS is here. Pleasure to have you joining us for another edition of the Conscious Approach video series on the YouTube channel. Thank you to everybody for joining on April the 11th. This is the start to the NBA play-in games, and the Heat are in the first of the play-in games against the Hawks. Hopefully, that's a good omen. So we'll see how that turns out. But pleasure to have you joining us on tonight's stream. Once again, JV Wins, Dogon SS. Appreciate everybody who has been joining the tribe as of late. If you have not done so, like we always like to say at the kickoff of every video, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Join the tribe. Participate in the conversation. Let us know what you think about all of our commentary. Let us know what you think about our videos. Go ahead and hit that like button. Go ahead and share the video wherever you are watching it. We certainly appreciate it as we continue to grow the community. We appreciate everyone who has jumped on board, who appreciates the logical content that we like to kick out because we certainly love to produce it. And without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started with tonight's stream. First up, we are going to talk about a story that we initially touched on last week. So, for anyone who is unaware, Bud Light partnered with a transgender social media influencer, and that partnership incurred a significant amount of backlash, to say the least. One of the more viral pieces of content that went out there in opposition to this campaign was Kid Rock. And Kid Rock's video is the video that we talked about last week, where he took his rifle and shot up a bunch of cases of Bud Light, apparently in protest to this partnership, even though he didn't state it. He didn't state it flagrantly in his clip. Everyone's pretty much concluding that that's what this was about. And he wasn't the only person. There were others who had a lot to say about this particular campaign. Well, Bud Light apparently was not prepared for the backlash that they incurred as a result of this, even though they did double down and defend the partnership in the first place. So I don't think they're going to backtrack and, cancel it, but they are speaking publicly on the reaction. And the individual who is speaking publicly about it, who is the most prominent, at least at the moment, is Bud Light's vice president of marketing. So we'll go ahead and check this out real quick so that we can see what she had to say before we give our opinions on her comments. But this is an article that we are sharing here that delves into what she had to say. And it says Bud Light's marketing VP says she was inspired to update, quote, fratty, out of touch branding with inclusivity. And so it says Bud Light's vice president of marketing discussed in a recent interview how she was inspired to update the fratty and out of touch humor of the beer company with inclusivity. Alyssa Heinerscheid, I hope I'm saying that right, Heinerscheid, did an interview with the podcast Make Yourself at Home on March 30th, where she discussed her work in transforming the Bud Light brand. Quote, I'm a businesswoman. I had a really clear job to do when I took over Bud Light, and it was this brand is in decline. It's been in decline for a really long time. And if we do not attract young drinkers to come and drink this brand, there will be no future for Bud Light, Heinerscheid said. Heinerscheid's comments have gone viral days later after Bud Light and its parent company Anheuser-Busch received backlash for partnering with transgender activist Dylan Mulvaney. The beer maker ignited a firestorm earlier this month when it celebrated Mulvaney's 365 days of girlhood by sending Mulvaney custom-made cans featuring the influencer's face. Mulvaney said the cans were her, quote, most prized possession on Instagram with a post featuring hashtag Bud Light Partner. A video then featured Mulvaney in a bathtub drinking a Bud Light beer as part of the campaign. And obviously, as we like to do, all relevant links will be in the description of this video. I am going to go ahead and play an excerpt from that podcast appearance from Bud Light's VP. of Marketing, Alyssa Heinerschneid, so that we can hear those remarks, and then we'll go ahead and talk about what she had to say.
I'm a businesswoman. I had a really clear job to do when I took over Bud Light. And it was, this brand is in decline. It's been in decline for a really long time. And if we do not attract young drinkers to come and drink this brand, there will be no future for Bud Light. So I had this super clear mandate. It's like, we need to evolve and elevate this incredibly iconic brand. And what I brought to that was a belief in, okay, what does evolve and elevate mean? It means inclusivity. It means shifting the tone. It means having a campaign that's truly inclusive and feels lighter and brighter and different and appeals to women and to men. And representation is at sort of the heart of evolution. You've got to see people who reflect you in the work. And we had this hangover. I mean, Bud Light had been kind of a brand of bratty, kind of out of touch humor. And it was really important that we had another approach.
All right, so that's pretty much the gist of it. So she gave out all the buzzwords. They were fratty, they were out of touch. The brand needed to incorporate inclusivity, so on and so forth. I am on the record last week. My opinion was that Kid Rock's opposition to Bud Light isn't on the surface necessarily. Well, on the surface, it's about the partnership, but I felt as though it was more than that. It was about there being a clear line in the sand in terms of what our society has accepted as right and wrong. And if you are not accepting of these types of moves of partnerships, it means that you are in the wrong. And furthermore, that if you express anything as such, that you ought to be thrown under the jail because you must be on the right side of history. That was my take. But encourage everybody to go and check out that video from last week. It was pretty good stuff on the channel. But yeah, so that was what she had to say. That was the inspiration behind the campaign. Of course, inclusivity. Who's going to argue against that, right? But what did you think about what she had to say?
You nailed it with the buzzwords there. She just laid them all out. If there was like you remember in elementary school where there was like words for the week and y'all had to learn them and spell them, know the definitions. This was the new age laundry list of buzzwords that everybody talks about, inclusiveness and all this other crap. So for her, she was laying out everything that is part of the new agenda that's going out for all the young people. So as she said that this is for the young people, and I had said that last week where they're done with crusty people who are heterosexual. Hell, I said it last week. They're done with regular gay people, and so they're pushing this stuff. So this Mulvaney character, because last week was the first I've ever heard of him, and of course there were other people opining on the same topic that we were, and people were doing some research and come to find out that this person's been around for a little while, even when before they transitioned. I saw a clip where this guy was prancing around stage on The Price is Right, just going ham, just going crazy. And so I'm like, who is this? Who is this person? So this Mulvaney character was picked, hand selected, because he is an actor. He's transgendered, and he has the charisma, if you will, and the motivation to push this type of stuff. This guy is ready for this, and he's getting paid hand over fist with these things. Nike also was doing a partnership with this guy.
Mm-hmm.
So This guy is hand selected to be a spokesperson for transgenderism. Now, when they said this person was a transgender activist, I'm like, what is that? What do you act? What are you being an activist for? Rights. You're human. Everybody's got rights right now. Nobody's denying transgenders of human rights. I'll go in Walmart and I'll see a transgender cashier. I saw a transgender person walk into a woman's bathroom before. So I'm really confused of what they're actually fighting for. So this transgender activism stuff is quite confusing. And to me, it's they throw the word activist on somebody that you can't criticize. And this person here is like I said, is this person, how can I put this? They're a franchise player. And they sign this person to a franchise type of deal to basically promote this type of agenda. I'm not a fan of it. I think it's trash. And this CEO woman, as you mentioned, and I said earlier, with all these buzzwords, trying to evolve a company does not mean inclusion. That's a lazy way of evolving your company. So that's not necessarily actually, um, helping the brand, as we can all see. So, I have more things to say here, but of course, I'm not a fan of this, and of course, I think this is um, I don't really think that I don't care. I don't think they care about making money with these things. I think the agenda trumps making money. But what do you say, sir?
Yeah, I agree. I think corporate America is um they are 100% convinced at this point. I think it's quite obvious that being on the right side of history is more important than making money. Remember when ESPN a couple years ago, it became so clear, and this was when the Kaepernick stuff was going on.
Hmm.
ESPN on every show, on every radio show, it seemed like every time you turn on ESPN, they were talking about social justice. They weren't talking about sports anymore. It was all social justice, to the point where people stopped watching ESPN. And they were trying to figure out, well, why are people not liking this? Like, we're righteous. We're talking about the right stuff. So why is it that people don't like this? And what they wanted to do was create a world in which people could accept that sports is going to come with social justice stuff. They wanted to force people into a new reality in which sports and social justice commentary went hand in hand. And what ESPN quickly realized is you're not going to be able to force that world onto society. The people have spoken, and the people have decided that they want sports to just be sports. And they want you to leave the social political talk to CNN and Fox News and MSNBC. Now, you can get into it from time to time as long as it's applicable, because if it happens to be a story that deals with an athlete or a team or a franchise or something like this, and it's affecting the world of sports specifically, then people will let that go. But to just have segment after segment where you're talking about societal issues and you throw a little sports wrench in there so that you can make it seem as though you're being on brand in terms of using sports, people aren't going to go for that. They're going to tune you out. And when they tune you out, you lose ratings, you lose sponsorships, you lose money. And ESPN realized this is counterintuitive to making money. So we need to dial some of this back, go back to talking sports a little more, because that's our bread and butter, and measure how often we get into the social justice stuff, because it's clear that people are turned off by that. So all of y'all people on ESPN who can't handle that because you want to talk about racism and sexism every time you get in front of a camera, Jamel Hill,
Totally.
if you can't deal with that, you might have to find somewhere else to work. And some of those people did find somewhere else to work. So I never bought this idea that inclusivity is what evolving a brand means. You know what
Exactly.
evolving a brand is? Evolving a brand is going from I don't know, a $3 billion market share to a $6 billion market share. That's evolving a brand.
Right.
So whatever you need to do to make that happen is what your job is. But what you're doing, but so what this woman is doing essentially is conflating evolving the brand with inclusivity, and those things, in my opinion, are mutually exclusive. And I looked up some stats. I did some little independent research here while you were talking because I think it's pretty interesting. You brought up a very interesting thing last week, and you just brought it up again here today, where you said these companies, and I never thought about this, and I think it's pretty profound, and hopefully other people find it as interesting as I do. These organizations have now, the pendulum has swung so far in the other direction. These organizations are moving past normal forms of inclusivity and they're just swinging for the fences. So they're like, it's like you said, they're done with black people, they're done with women, they're done with gay people, they're just going straight into the trans stuff. And I found that I think that that's very interesting, and I think that it's true. So I just did some research here, and I'm just looking up some stuff here. And according to like the latest census numbers from the United States Census, black people comprise 13.6% of the American population, right?
Mhm.
And then I found another number that says, this is a Gallup poll. It's estimated that 7.1% of Americans identify as LGBTQ. So that's just 7.1% of Americans that identify beneath that whole umbrella. So obviously, the number of people who identify as trans is going to be a minute percentage within that 7.1%. So the amount of people that you're trying to appeal to through these campaigns, from
Exactly.
based on the numbers, isn't enough to support the idea that that constitutes evolving the brand.
Right.
The numbers don't back that up.
Right.
So if the numbers don't back that up, I, at that point, have no choice but to reasonably conclude in my own mind that you're doing this on purpose for a reason. Because who is asking for this?
Right.
You're talking about 7.1% of the population, and if you want to go trans specifically, it's even less than that. Like
Mhm.
the number doesn't even register enough for it to be reported. It's just within the 7.1% of LGBTQ. So what's really going on? And why is it that you have to go here in order to evolve Bud Light to appeal to young people? Furthermore, why is it that if you're appealing to young people, it means you're going trans? Like, what does that even mean? So, like, are young people more inclined to be trans than not? Like, there's so many layers to this that are suspect to me. It's not hitting the mark. And like you said, I don't like it. It doesn't make sense. If you really want it to be inclusive, especially because we're in post George Floyd America, go with the black people. Bud Light up until this point, historically, I would say, hasn't really appealed to the black audience all that much. They appeal to the Brett Favre Wrangler jeans wearing middle America crowd.
Right.
So if you want to go inclusive, how about you go to a percentage of a minority population in this country that is big enough percentage wise in order for it to make sense that you would leap to this idea that you need to evolve your brand by becoming inclusive. You got the black people at 13.6%. That's a decent enough percentage. And you got let's see here, you got Hispanic or Latino, which is at 18.9%, right? So Hispanic people, Latino people, 18.9%, they're the biggest minority population in this country, surpassed black people probably 10 years ago. You leap them, you leap black people, hell, you even leap gay people, like you said, and you went straight to the trans people. So there's a part of this to me that smells fishy.
Mhm.
And then when you throw in other things that she talked about, like we need to get younger drinkers, why does that equate with trans? I don't get what trans has to do with that. So a lot of it seems purposeful. It seems like it's some sort of weirdo. I don't know what focus groups they conducted to conclude that this is the direction that they need to go, but it doesn't make sense. And that's why I think that there was backlash. Hey, look, man, you want to be on the right side of history, and you want to be like, this is what people need to be on. You think everybody needs to be on that trans stuff. Look, you can think that stuff if you want to. The numbers are going to tell you that that's not the majority of the population. It isn't even it's at the most 7.1%. So unless you're projecting that more and more of our population is going to go trans, which, hey, at this point with all of this crazy stuff going on, I can't put it past it. You're essentially doing this in order to sort of meet some end game here. And we can speculate all day what that end game is. I'm just saying that the math in terms of that strategy doesn't add up. And yeah, I'm not a big fan of it. And I don't think that a lot of what she said made a ton of sense.
Hey, well, good job there, sir. I agree 100% with everything you said. And even like you said, like if there's 7% people who identify, right? Uh, somebody in the LGBT community would say that, well, not everybody's going to identify. So that number is actually higher. And there's people who lie. They always got something to say. So, but let's just deal with the statistics as they are. And let's say it's 7%. And then, of course, as you mentioned, that the trans community will be lower. So if I am interested in casting an umbrella to throw a net to catch as much money as I possibly can, why would you isolate 97% of the country? That doesn't make any sense. So at this point, your agenda is trumping making money.
Yes.
And then so she now, as I was looking at all of this stuff, you know, a lot of people had stuff to say about Bud Light in general, saying that it's a crappy beer in the first place. And as this lady even mentioned, their numbers have been declining for a while. So instead of doubling down on the Wrangler jeans people, the people who watch NFL games, instead of trying to enhance your recipe, you decide to target a niche community who's on the rise, by the way. So when she's targeting young people and she's targeting the future buyers for the next 20 to 30 years. So there's kids who are watching this who are not of age to drink yet, but they are being influenced by this and they will be eventually buying beers later. I think what they're doing here is that they're hedging their bet because they already lost with heterosexual people. They already lost with whatever's going on now because their numbers have been declining. But there's something going on in media that's promoting this kind of lifestyle. If I were to project and invest in the future, there's going to be more people of this community in the future. It ain't going to be 7% no more.
Yeah.
So they're investing in the future. Young consumers. So they're done with us old heads. Because us old heads weren't buying it anyway. So they're investing in the future. So part of all of this stuff is to continue to promote this kind of lifestyle, period. And by also promoting this lifestyle, now they're going to start advertising to them. So then you'll see pride parades where it's sponsored by Bud Light. And so they're going to have Bud Light stations, and guys in thongs just shooting water cannons. And man, if you ever see clips of those things, man, people bring their kids out there.
Yeah.
It's hey man, what are we living in? What world are we living in, man? So these people are investing in that. All right. So like you said, I don't know what these focus groups is. I don't know what they're actually doing. I don't know what numbers they're crunching, but I think what they're doing is they're doing some analytics and they're saying that if we carve out a lane right now, just in time for Pride Month, it's not here yet, but all of this momentum, Pride Month, they already got, hey, we're allies. We're Bud Light.
Mm-hmm.
Come drink our beer. But there's some cognitive dissonance on my end of, do gay people even drink Bud Light? I guess they do. Trans people drink beer? I think trans people like being like women. I think they'll be more
Yeah.
wine sippers than beer.
Yeah, I always thought that. I always put trans people in the same bracket as like hipsters in
Yeah.
terms of the stuff that they're into. Like
Yeah.
and maybe this is my ignorance, but I always felt like if trans people drink beer, it's craft beer.
Yeah, correct.
It's like you go to a brewery and
Yeah.
that's where they drink beer. They go
Yeah.
to a brew because they're not going to go to Publix or Walmart and buy a case of Heineken. They're going to go
No.
to they're going to go to a brewery and they're going to drink specific IPAs and Hypervices. That's what they're going to drink. That's how I always thought of trans people with beer. Correct me if I'm wrong. That's how I always looked at it is
Hey,
they're
man.
just into that hipster, elitist, sophisticated stuff.
Yeah, but I think what they're trying to do is, and again, the marketing of this is that this is a drink of trans people. And I think that's what they're trying to push. Because the more you look at this image, the more you associate transgenderism with Bud Light. And so I think just like how De Beers and everybody else got people thinking that buying diamonds means that you love your wife. That worked through marketing. And so if they push hard enough, it'll be a trans beer.
Yeah.
And if the future is going where everybody is afraid it's going, they're one of the people who are laying down a cornerstone in this thing and planting their flag of, hey man, yeah, we're allies, and trans people drink our beer. And
Yeah.
it wasn't as much outrage with Nike and all the other sponsors that this same person got. But yeah, there's a saying out there now that I'm quite fond of. And people are saying, go woke, go broke. And if you decide to do these, quasi diet woke things, people are starting to pull their dollar. So, yeah, people are going to have to start voting with their wallets. And they're really going to have to start saying no to stuff.
Yeah.
So if you don't get down with it, that's 97% of the country plus. So stop buying stuff. And this stuff here, I just think it's conditioning and brainwash. Because who's on TikTok, man? Who's on TikTok? And how is he considered an influencer and an activist? So I can go on and on about all of these little, words that they give these people. But at the end of the day, man, yeah, they're done advertising. Yeah, they just skip black people, dude. That's a healthy chunk. And Hispanics, they're coming up
Right.
too.
That's
And it's
18%. Yeah. Like,
yeah,
why
and
would you
it's
skip that?
yeah, and as far as like having like assets, infrastructure, and stuff like that, Hispanic people ain't playing around. They're getting money out here. So why not
Mhm.
advertise to them?
Yeah.
So yeah, so to go so niche is ridiculous. It doesn't make financial sense. This screams something else. So
It does. And it just speaks to, and I'm pretty sure that she was not alone in this. I'm pretty sure she has a team and she's
absolutely.
just the one who's, pulling the strings. But
Mhm.
ideologically, she aligns with the direction of
Absolutely.
the strategy.
Mhm.
And so, they've cleared, like, I just think that it's like you said, I think that they pushed all their chips and they went all in, betting that the future of America looks in such a way that people are just going to be gender neutral and fluid.
Mhm.
That's what they envision the future
Mhm.
of maybe not even just America, but of the world,
Mhm.
where it's just going to be normal and reasonable to assume that people are going to just kind of float back and forth from one gender to the next, or that whatever sex you're assigned to at birth is irrelevant because people are just going to make a decision consciously. Do I want to stay this gender or do I want to become a different gender? And so yeah, the population is growing, and they're basically banking on that, taking hold. But if people like Kid Rock and others who protested this have anything to say about it, there is going to be some pushback. And yeah, if you do go woke, you do go broke for sure. And I don't even, I just kind of think it's intentional, and it's less about being inclusive, and it's more about a specific type of inclusiveness. It's like selective outrage. You get mad about the stuff that you want to get mad about based on what triggers you. And so for a lot of these corporations, it isn't about inclusiveness. It's about a specific type of inclusiveness. And what kind of bell can we ring to make us look like we are so far on the right side of righteousness that we are above reproach, while simultaneously being able to accurately predict the future. And I don't want that to be the future, but they're saying this is what the future is going to be. And if they have their way, it will be. So it is what it is. But just, don't get confused with all of this inclusivity and all of the rest of these buzzwords talking about, you know, um, the brand failing over years and all of this kind of stuff. And so the math just doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense to alienate 93% to appease a 7% group. The math doesn't add up. It speaks to me that there's a specific type of thing that you're going for. And it ain't about being inclusive because you leapt over a lot of other groups that you have not historically been marketing to. So if it was about inclusiveness, you would have stopped there before hopping on the train to Transtown. You just went all the way to Transtown because there's something specific that you're looking for.
Yep.
And when you connect that with trying to appeal to younger drinkers, I think that gives you all of the illumination that you need in terms of what this type of thing is trying to accomplish.
Well said. Well said. Agree 100.
So crazy stuff, man. I'm not buying it. I'm not a fan of it. I can't do anything more than we're doing here on this channel. I never bought the stuff to begin with. Never been much of a beer drinker, period. But yeah, you're right. People don't like it. Just don't buy the stuff. Don't buy it. If you don't like something, don't monetarily support it. If they're thriving, then it tells you that there's people who are supporting it. And a lot of those people might even be saying that they don't, but in secret they do.
I know. In the closet, Bud Light drinker. Come out the closet, you bastards.
Yeah. For real, yo. Crazy stuff, man. Crazy stuff.